Now we are streaming. October 12th, 2016. You're listening to the Trial by Fire podcast with your host, John and Colby.
Hello, everyone.
Tonight, we're going to be talking about some deep shit, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, Colby has a game review for us, or a game first impression. What is it?
It's Recore. It's for the Xbox One. I played it for 2 weeks straight, nonstop. I enjoyed it. It brought me back to those retro games where you really have to just bear down, grind a little bit, and you get a little bit of a reward in the end. And I really loved it until the end of the game. The end of the game, you have to go. Yeah, exactly. At the end of the game, you have to go to this like pyramid-like structure, right? And throughout the whole world, it's a huge open world, but throughout the world, there's these little side quests you can do. Okay, they're side quests. I'll do them later. I want to get the story done. I want to see where it goes with the story, and then I will come back to the side quest. That's how I've always played games. But this one, at the very end, you have to get these cores, okay? At the very end, they're like, you have to get this specific amount of cores in order to proceed in the story. Well, to get that amount of, cores, enough to actually see the ending of the story, you have to do every single side quest complete, like with no flaws or anything, because they're puzzles. Like one of them's a speed trial. If you don't do it fast enough, then you don't get the core. There's another one that's a logic puzzle. You have to do certain things in a certain sequence in order to open up the next room. Well, there's like 20 of them in a row, and you have to get them all right in order to get the core. Well, the end of the freaking main story requires you to do every single one of those optional quests, and it's ridiculous.
So it's not actually optional then?
Exactly.
That's weird. I've never heard of that in a game. I mean, I suppose I have, but I don't know. Why? It's like why make them out to be optional when really it's like, oh, you should do these side quests because they will help you in the end or something. You just be like mysterious about it, but make it like seem like more important than there's just like this side thing that you can ignore, and then now you can't ignore it. That just seems silly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't understand why they would put that into a game like that, where it's a very open world and there's a lot of different interesting enemy types that you have to figure out what weapon type, because there's 4 different weapon types you can use. You have to figure out which weapon type will work better on each enemy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a very interesting take on the retro gaming where you have to use different weapons, you have to use different power-ups and stuff like that to get to certain areas. But at the very end, it's like, okay, you did a great job getting here, but you didn't do everything in the game, so you can't go anywhere.
Check out our side quests!
Exactly. Usually stories like this, you can do the main quest and the main storyline and get it completely done, but you won't get the official ending unless you do everything in the game. Or this game, they're like, you're not even getting an ending whatsoever until you do all the optional stuff.
Mm-hmm. Like in Destiny, it doesn't affect the story at all if you don't do the side quests.
Correct. Yeah.
It's like the side quests are fun, and some of them are, even though it's like the same thing over and over again with the side quests in Destiny, it's like you don't have to do them, but if you want to be like a really high level at the end of the game and make the game easier for you, it's a good idea to do the side quests.
Yes, exactly, yeah. It's a good idea, but it's not recommended. It's not required, I should say. It's recommended, it's just not required. Where in Recore, I love the story that they were going with. I love the companions you can get throughout the game as well. They really had different characteristics, and it really showed through with their abilities. But to have the main story tied in at the same time, it's hard.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other games that have similar features where they do that too, because I feel like Recore isn't the first game to do this. They can have been.
No,
there's
it's
been
really
so many games out, and especially just over the last 15 years, we've seen such a rise in popularity of video games, and then also such like a formulaic nature come to video games that it just doesn't make sense
yep.
to think that they might have not, or they might have been the first ones to do it. But nothing's coming to mind right now, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
I can't think of any comparisons right now either. But yeah,
I Recore is like one of those games where when I initially saw it at I think at E3 this year, it looked like one of those games where I was like, this seems like kind of like this is going to be a pass game for me because it doesn't look very interesting, at least from the trailers that I saw. It's like, okay, so you've got this and it's set in this setting. Hey, great. What's it doing any different? Like, what's different about it? And so I kind of just gave it a pass.
hmm
And since it came out, it's been like the only game that I've heard people talk about.
yeah. I mean, the gameplay is it brings me back to that Metroid era. You know, the old side scrolling, you know, strategy based games where it's not just run and shoot. You actually have to think about what weapons you're going to use, what areas you're going to go to. I love that part about the game. I also loved discovering new enemies to fight and trying to find out their weaknesses. It's just that ending, it gets me like, okay, I got this far. I'm 99% done with the storyline, not the side quests, the storyline, and you're not going to grant me that 1% because I didn't do your side quests.
Hmm.
And I lost all heart in the game after that, and it's really disappointing because, like I said, I got 99% of the game done, and I love those 99% that I played. But if you're gonna deny me that 1% just because I didn't want to do a side quest, I'm sorry, you've lost me after that.
Yeah, that's kind of like a shitty thing to do. It's like forcing people to buy DLC or something. You know, it's one of those like shitty things that you shouldn't do in a game.
Yep.
I wonder now what that other game is going to be like. I'm trying to think of. I can't think of the name of it. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a futuristic game, but it's like the world got taken over by alien robots, and people hunt them with like bows and arrows and stuff.
No, I haven't even heard of a game like that.
Really? Like I've seen it at
Yeah.
E3 for the past 2 years, and it looks really good. And
Um,
I'm
that kind
wondering.
of reminds me of Prey 2, but that project's been shelved so many times.
No, it's not Prey. I know it's not Prey. It's one of those games where it's like we've only seen like they're not ready to release it yet. It's probably going to be out next year after E3, sometime in the winter, based
Okay.
off of the way the development looks. I don't. I'd have to look it up, but it looks like a really interesting game, and it's one of those games where it's like I could kind of, now that I've seen stuff coming out from Recore, that I
hmm
would like to try to compare it to that, but at the same time, it looks like it's going to be like a more grand open world game, whereas Recore I think is a little bit more linear, isn't it?
Really, it's not. Once you get through the tutorial missions on Recore, it actually really opens up for you in your possibilities. It's a huge open world. I mean, there's off the top of my head, I want to say there's 5 different maps you can go onto, and each map is huge. I mean, there's actually a colossal robot that you can explore. It's so huge, and that's just on one of the maps, and it's in the dead center of the map, and you still have to walk forever to get to from one edge to the other.
Huh.
It's a really big game.
Okay. Yeah, this game that I can't remember the name of. Ooh, somebody's getting text messages.
Hmm.
This game that I'm thinking of, it has a big open world feel to it, but at the same time, it's kind of like Far Cry esque, if that makes sense. Like
Okay. Yeah.
it's like it's like a decent mashup of a bunch of different games. Like there's also that game, I can never remember the name of this one either. God, it's a computer game where you start out as like a naked person and you work your way up, and eventually you can get like guns and stuff. But you like build stuff and find parts and rocks and tools and stuff.
I um. That could be a few different games. I mean, there's a plethora that have come out like that.
Well,
So
it's kind of the idea of you start out with nothing and you work your way into something. I'm kind of wondering like who's gonna do it better with the futuristic robot big open world game? Is it going to be Recore? Or is it going to be this game next year? And
Well, the way like I said with Recore, it had me until the end, and in my opinion, the end is the most important thing of a story. The way you wrap things up, and I felt like I got denied the end completely with this game. So I would have to say the game I don't even know the name for, because I was very disappointed with Recore.
okay. I mean, up until the ending, did you enjoy it? Did you think it was a good game up until the ending?
Yes, I did. I mean, newer gamers today probably wouldn't, but since I have that retro background, I enjoyed it. Even though it was somewhat repetitive on some of its aspects, I enjoyed the challenge of certain areas because you had to literally solve puzzles to get to certain areas, or you had to be really good at double jumps, which a lot of people wouldn't be able to do. Just pick up the game and start doing double jumps.
Oh
But
yeah.
having that retro background with Mario, or Metroid, or any of those games, Legend of Zelda, that's a good one too. You got to figure out all these different puzzles. Sometimes the computer doesn't even tell you what that puzzle is, and you just have to go with your gut and trial and error and keep screwing up and look like a fucking retard. And thankfully I didn't record any of this, because that would be like 20 hours of me just fucking around trying to figure shit out.
See, and that sounds like fun to me. Like that's the making of a good story or of a good game is when while you're playing it, you have to think about what you're doing and you have to really like try to do it.
Yep.
And you don't want it to be overly challenging to a point where you almost can't do it, like Super Meat Boy or A Binding of Isaac. But you want it to be challenging enough to make you think, but at the same time you enjoy what you're doing. Even if maybe sometimes you have to do it a couple of extra times, like in Portal, like it's still like a really it's a marking of a really good game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I would like to play it if I ever get my computer upgraded, or maybe I can convince a friend of mine to let me play it at her house because I she has a Xbox One and I'm sure I could
Mhm.
convince her to let me buy Recore or maybe we go halvesies on it and I'll go over to her house and play.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, like I said, I recommend it. If I knew going into the game that I'd have to do every single side quest to get the actual ending, I would have probably, spent some time in certain areas trying to find that core. But, you know, I like story more than finding things. So I just wanted to rush through the main story first and then probably do a new, play through and just, fuck around and go through side quests and all the challenges. But like I said, I'm such a story buff. I mean, I even have like four stories going on right now. One of them's animation for school, another one's a machinima for my channel. I mean, just things are happening story wise in my life, and with a game to deny me a story, I just think that's an epic fail.
You said you don't like collecting things and you like to focus more on the story. I'm curious, did you ever get into the older games that were like big collectathons like Spyro or Banjo Kazooie?
Yes, I did, and I watched your playthroughs of Banjo Kazooie,
I,
and
I, I mentioned Banjo Kazooie, but I actually wanted to talk about Spyro because
Spyro. Okay.
Spyro for me was a huge inspiration for wanting to like make video games actually like especially when I was more of a teenager.
Hmm.
One of my best memories in video gaming as a younger person was playing Spyro A New Beginning on the PlayStation 2. Wow, what an amazing game that is. Like
I remember that game.
what an amazing game, and at the time to see like I had grown up as a little kid, a little youngin at like uh uh five five to ten, somewhere in that area. I uh, had a PlayStation One. That was the console my parents went with. Kind of regret that decision. I mean, it wasn't like it was my choice. If it was my choice, we would have got an N64, and I would have had way better experiences as a child gaming. But it wasn't up to me. It was my parents'
Nope.
choice. So my parents got the PlayStation, and one of the games that they got for it was Spyro, and I don't remember which one it was. It was like the very first Spyro, like just Spyro the Dragon or whatever it is. And that game was hella fun because it was just silly. It was just a silly game, but it was also a big.
Yeah, it was.
It was a collectathon, and the things I remember about that game was collecting a bunch of stuff, collecting like dragon eggs or baby dragons or something, um, and collecting coins and stuff in each world. And then I remember just some of the sillier characters. Like I remember there was characters who would moon you until you killed them, or there were characters who would moon you, but they had on iron underpants, so you couldn't flame them. You had to like ram into them, and there was like creative stuff like that that was really interesting. But I never beat the game. I never really got into it because I could never get far enough into it because as a younger gamer and playing a game like that, like I didn't understand the whole collectathon aspect. So I think I never,
yeah, definitely.
and I think I never really made it past like level 3 or 4 in the game because at some point it's like you have to collect everything in all of the previous levels in order to be able to continue. It's not like you can collect just one or most of everything in those levels. You're gonna have to go back and get everything. And that was something I really liked about Banjo-Kazooie was that I didn't have to collect everything. I just had to get almost everything.
Well, another game like that would have to be Ratchet and Clank or Jack and Dexter. Those two came out around the same time. They're kind of the same formula, you know. You got the two anti-heroes that are thrown into the heroic role, and you don't necessarily have to collect anything. It could benefit you to collect things, but you didn't have to, you know, in those games. And I think that's a good blend of storytelling and collection at the same time, because those games, like I said, you didn't have to collect anything, but if you did, you could get that special weapon you might need down the road in Ratchet and Clank, or you might get an upgrade to your vehicle in Jack and Dexter that might help you in a race that you have to play like 5 levels from now, you know?
And that's one of the really nice things about those games, especially compared to Spyro, is that there were good reasons to do those things, like besides just beyond just getting to the next level and continuing on with the game and eventually beating the game, was that if you collect these things you get upgrades, whereas in Spyro, no upgrades. You didn't get any upgrades at all. But besides like learning new abilities, like I think you started out with just the ability to ram, and then later on you had the ability to use fire. But then those are the only 2 moves that you've got really, and then you can hover.
Yep.
So there wasn't a lot of substance to the game in that aspect. But then moving on to the PlayStation 2 revamp of Spyro: A New Beginning, where they added Elijah Wood as Spyro, the voice of Spyro, and David Spade as the voice of the Firefly, whose name I can't fucking remember. Sparks, I think, actually.
Sparks, yeah.
What a change! What a drastic change from the original game. All of a sudden, it was this like dark, brooding story with these really big baddie characters, and you're not really sure what's going on. I mean, but you want to reveal stuff. You want to get into it, and you want to reveal stuff and find out, how did Spyro end up in the river at the beginning of the game, and who is this character who is the big bad throughout the whole game, and trying to get to that point. And I remember when it came out, my local library had gotten a hold of it, and they rented out games, and so I rented the game from my library. I brought it home that night. I put it in my console, and I did not stop playing it until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was really close to the end. The only reason I stopped, I played the game for so long that it scratched the disc, and so it wouldn't load past this certain point. I couldn't get any further. It killed me. It killed me as a child to try to be playing this game, and just it wouldn't load. Like I had saved, I reloaded everything, turned everything off, turned it back on, still wouldn't load past that part. Tried cleaning the disc, still wouldn't load past that part. I was really bummed out. Went to sleep. Next day, went to the library. They had one of those disc cleaners, the polish discs. Polished it, brought it back to my house. Still wouldn't fucking work. I didn't beat that game for a year and a half. I literally played almost the entire game in the course of about 8 hours, and then didn't get a chance to play it again for a year and a half until a friend of mine happened to also own the game, and he was like, "I'll let you borrow it if you want to beat it." And I was like, "Oh, fucking let me borrow it so I can beat it." And
Oh man.
and then it was just
made me so mad.
oh yeah, it was
Be
so
that close, you know?
it was so underwhelming to beat it a year and a half later. It was a real heartbreaker for me because it's like I'm glad that I beat the game and I got through it, but it just didn't have the same impact. Just did not have the same impact as it had when I had originally played it. Just it's like I didn't know the game anymore compared to how much I had gotten to learn the game and how much I got to know the game over the course of those 8 hours. It was,
Oh yeah.
That's probably the worst thing ever to happen to a gamer, I think. Is just your game breaks just before you beat it.
No, the worst thing to happen to a gamer probably doesn't happen much anymore. It's when you have a game that doesn't have any saves, like the old retro games, and you are, like you said, about 8, 9, 10 hours into a game,
And the power
then
goes
the
out.
Power goes out.
Yep.
You are just like devastated that Sonic the Hedgehog was on the last level, and all you had to do was spin to the end, and you would have beaten the game. But no. No. Mother Nature had different plans for you that day.
That's something. That's something that I don't miss about older games. Is that you couldn't save them. Even on the N64, it was a process to save your game. You had to have one of
And
those
not every
cartridges
game
that
allowed
plugs.
it.
You had to have one of those cartridges that plugs into the handheld, and then you could save the game. It's like, what the hell is that? Who came up with that idea? What an idiot! But I mean, it's better than the way it was like in the previous generation of consoles. So I mean,
Very
can't,
true, yeah.
can't really fault them for that. But sorry, I'm messing with something. I spilled some epoxy on my desk earlier, and it's really bugging me. I'm trying to peel it off.
Come on, John. Be professional here. I mean,
Wait. Let me talk about why there is epoxy on my desk.
okay, yeah. Sure.
So
Let us know. Come on.
So,
We're all interested now.
I'm working on I was working on a project that is going to lead into a video here probably this weekend or something. I don't know exactly when I'm going to release the video yet, but basically I'm working on this thing that you've probably noticed behind me throughout the entire episode that I kind of showed Colby a little bit. It's a lightsaber. It's a lightsaber. I built a lightsaber for less than $25, which is really impressive to me. This is you can duel with it, like you could go against somebody else, but I don't recommend it. It's like you could, but it's like why would you want to risk breaking it? The big thing is that this thing isn't held together with screws or anything. It's pretty much all held together with epoxy, and epoxy can break. In fact, this is still curing right now. At this point, it should be hard enough that I could duel with it if I wanted to. But this is kind of a Darth Vader-esque lightsaber, but it's not exactly because I used the Luke Skywalker hilt.
So it's if Luke went to the dark side.
Yeah, basically. Like, this was a blue saber, and because I only had a red pipe to make the blade out of, it turned into a red blade. Because I was actually originally working on, let me grab it, my Kylo Ren blade. Hold on. So, this is what I was doing originally. And I almost got it working. I'm really bummed out. This one is harder to take apart than the Luke Skywalker blade. So, this is how close I got. And this is really frustrating. So, there's the blade.
It's so close.
I know. I'm
close.
really close. I think I can get it. I just have to try a different approach. So, for now, this one's getting sidelined, but it's so close. It's But this one, it turns out, because of the way the internals are set up on this one, I was able to modify it to work. Instead of the way I'm doing this one, which is everything's kind of on the outside, I was actually able to build it so that this one has everything on the inside. So when I go to do the video on Saturday, I will show how I came up with this. But here we go, pushing the button. Whew. Although it doesn't seem as bright as the Kylo Ren blade, you might notice. And in fact, you can see where the LEDs are inside of the blade. I think that might be because the LEDs aren't receiving enough power, so I might look into seeing if I can up the voltage going to these.
I'm pretty sure you could easily do that. So.
Well, not with the way this is being done. Not unless I was using, I think, stronger batteries, because these are just AAA batteries in here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If I could upgrade it to use maybe like a 12 volt or two 12 volts, that might be the key to getting this thing to light up brighter. But look at this thing! Ah! It's so wavy on the camera because cameras have really poor shutter speed, but yeah, it's cool.
Right there.
It's cool and it's exciting and. But I had to pour a lot of epoxy in the tip of this because I didn't have any screws or anything to secure the blade into here. And after I poured, I didn't realize that the pouring cup that I was using ended up tipping over because it was lopsided. And it spilled onto, unfortunately, not onto my desk, which I could probably deal with, but actually my gigantic mouse pad. So now it's permanently marred. I'm going to have to get a new one or something.
For shame, man. For shame.
Yeah. I'm depressed. I'm depressed. No, not about that. So this is the deep portion of the podcast because this is something that I want to talk about, and it'd be interesting actually to get your take on it because I've kind of asked some people and they all have been kind of like, you just got to deal with it, just got to get through one day at a time. One day at a time, John. And what's...
I'm just gonna say right now that's bullshit. But continue.
Yeah, so Colby already knows what I'm going to talk about, and if you read the title of the podcast, we're going to be talking about anxiety, but also depression. It's going to be a double whammy here, and that's because I have personally been dealing with some anxiety lately. Anxiety and depression. It's one of those things where it's like I've been getting hit in the gut almost every day with stuff that's been happening that I don't know how to deal with it. As an adult who is single and my only family is always working as much as I am, and I don't really have a lot of friends that I can go to and talk to about something like this. It's hard to try to deal with it on your own. And I'm hoping maybe talking about it on the podcast will help me out a little bit. But so here's what happened. Here's what triggered it initially. So I started a second job, and that a while back, I had talked about it. I was working with children, and that was going great for a very long time. And then I decided that I didn't want to work there anymore, and I kind of did the worst thing possible when it comes to leaving a job, and that is I just stopped showing up.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, but at the time I didn't care. I had gotten another job working at a place that I used to, which to me I was hoping it was going to be less stressful, but it turns out no, because as soon as I switched to that job, I went from having a normal weekly schedule of Monday through Friday and then occasionally working on Saturdays to working Monday through Friday with one day off somewhere in there at a random day, because it's never the same day, and then also working Saturdays but opening on Saturdays, which also, it doesn't sound too bad until you take into consideration that my new job, I work Fridays and Saturdays, and those Fridays and Saturdays I'm working overnights. So I work from 11 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and then an hour and a half later I have to be at my main job, and I have to work 8 hours there, and then I get home and I get about 4 hours of rest, because that's just how my body works. No matter what I do, no matter what I try, my body refuses to let me sleep in the afternoon. And then if I try to sleep in the morning, it's the same thing. It'll only let me get 4 hours. The only time I can get a decent night's sleep is at night. And so this exhaustion has just been building up on me for the past 4 weeks. And what I've been doing to try to conquer it is my roommate gave me some caffeine pills. I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, it's just caffeine. It's the same thing. One of those pills is about the equivalent of a Monster or a double shot energy drink Starbucks energy drink. Like it's basically the same caffeine content, right? So I started taking those, and it was helping with my overnights. I could get through my overnights, and I wasn't too exhausted at the end of it. And then I'd pop one more before I went into Staples, and everything was fine there too. For the most part, I'd get pretty exhausted at the end of the day, and I'd go home, and then I'd crash for about 4 hours, wake up, 2 more pills, back to work. And I was doing this every single weekend for the past 3 weeks, or 4 weeks actually. And then this last week, I got some L-theanine pills, which are a nootropic extract from green tea that are supposed to also help with relaxation, but also mental focus and stress relief. And I started taking those along with the caffeine pills, and I think like the chemical mixture just got to me. Because on Saturday, I had a full-blown, never had this happen to me before, despite everything that's ever happened to me in my life, anxiety attack. And it was scary. Like, it happened to me at work. Like, I wasn't at home and I could just curl up in my bed and deal with it. I was at work. I was in the middle. I was at the beginning of my shift at my main job, and I couldn't do anything. 45 minutes to an hour. I don't even know exactly how long it was. I couldn't function. I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't do my job. And thank God that it was slow, because if I had to deal with customers, honestly, like the way I was at the time, I might have quit. Like I might have just walked out. And go ahead.
Well, I know what you're going through. In the military, doing the stuff you and I have talked about that I used to do. After I got out, I had those every single day for about 6 months until I finally just bunkered down and decided to get help. But mine was a different situation. And anyways, continue your story. I don't want to get into that right now. I don't want to cut you off. So
okay,
continue with yours.
Well, okay, so the reason why I'm bringing it up is because, one, it is something that's happening to me, like, right now. Like, I actually feel anxiety right now. I have felt it for the last couple of days. Like, it's like ever since I had this anxiety attack, all of a sudden, it's just been, like, almost an everyday thing. There's only one day this week so far that I didn't feel any anxiety whatsoever, and that was on Sunday, because I didn't have to work, and I was just hanging out with my friends and having fun, and it was a good day.
Yeah.
But as soon as I went back to work, though, it was like more anxiety. And then I had a day off, and that didn't help anything. Like, I still had anxiety all day yesterday. Came into work again today, even more anxiety. And it's like just things keep happening almost every single day now. It feels like, and it's like I don't know if I'm overreacting, like if these things are happening and it's just normal, and I am like psyching myself out, or I don't know. Like it's one of those things.
It's really hard to say whether or not it's just everything building up, because I mean, working 2 jobs, that's very stressful for one. I mean,
yeah, but it's
not only on your body, because you're not getting as much sleep as you should, but also mentally, because you have to literally switch gears in the middle of your day to completely change the way you're thinking, the way you operate, what you're doing, what you have to do, what you can't do. I mean, just that alone is very mentally draining. And on top of that, having lack of sleep, I mean, your brain can only take so much abuse, and that's what you are doing to yourself right now. You're mentally abusing yourself, trying to find this happy medium of having 2 jobs, lack of sleep. That's why the caffeine pills came in, and now you're doing the tea extract pills to kind of help with that as well. I mean,
I've actually cut those out. Like I fully believe that if I hadn't started the regiment of the L-theanine on top of the caffeine, and if I had maybe cut down the dosages of caffeine, I would have never had an anxiety attack to begin with. So I completely cut those out, and I'm hoping that helps. But honestly, it's like even right now, like when we were talking about Spyro and we were talking about the video games and stuff, it kind of went away because I was able to focus on something else. But now they're talking about it again, and I kind of did this to myself on purpose so I could remind myself what it feels like. Is just I feel anxious, and it's weird. I have nothing to feel anxious about. Well, I mean, there's stuff happening at work, and it involves myself, and then also my best friend, and also upper management. And there's also something else that happened at work, which I can talk about. I can't talk about what's going on with me and my friend because it's one of those things where it's like nobody knows what's going to happen yet, and so I don't want to like jump the gun and then find out that I was wrong. So I won't talk about that right now. But what I can talk about was what caused me to have like almost another anxiety attack to a point where I came home, I grabbed my roommate, and I was like, "We're gonna go drinking," and we went out and we drank. I haven't seen eye to eye very well with this guy who I work with. He's just been like a kind of a piece of crap since he came back to work, and I guess I should have expected it. I expected higher of him, especially since the first couple of weeks that he was there, he was doing really good, and he was like on it, like he was doing everything that we wanted him to. But he fell back into the old rut from before he had left, because he used to work there. He fell back into his old rut, and so I've been kind of on him about it since then. And on Monday, things kind of reached a head with him, and at the end of the day, after the store had closed, he came to me and he wanted to throw down in the parking lot.
Jesus.
Yeah, like it was that bad, and it's like I know that I know that it's in part my fault. I know that I provoked him a little bit and that I've done some stuff, but at the same time, it's like the only reason I do it is to try to encourage him to not just stand there and do nothing, or to stand there and talk to whoever's up at the front, to actually like help us out on the floor and do more than like rise above those expectations that everybody else has for the guy. I because he's a good guy for the most part. I mean, he does some not so great stuff. He's not the best person per se, but as far as like an employee goes, he's really good at selling, and that's key. That's one of the key jobs at my store is selling. We need to have people who are good at selling stuff, and he's really good at it. Everything else though, he's not, and those are the things that I get onto him about. And yeah, like I said, it reached a head, and it was like one of those things where once it had happened, and I haven't been in a fight since I was in high school, since I was a junior in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he was like, "You want to throw down," I started getting like those old high school feelings of being anxious and being nervous back in my system. And what it's doing to me now is today, like even though it's been 3 days since this has happened, I have to go to work tomorrow, and he's gonna be there at some point in the day, and it's got me really really apprehensive about going in. And it's like it's not like I'm not gonna go in. I'm just kind of scared, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, that's an obvious human reaction, you know? I mean, like you said, you haven't been in a fight in so long, and, well, you don't know what this person's capable of, and you're an adult, so you actually think about consequences, you know? And that's giving you the anxiety attacks, and just thinking about it, I can see right now that it's affecting you, just thinking about it. Just thinking about what might happen. I've been there. It sucks.
Yeah.
You feel like you're weak, like you're helpless, like, you know, there's nothing really you can do about it. And I don't know what exactly to say to make you feel better and not to be like completely poof, gone anxiety, you know, forever.
See,
I wish.
And see, that's the thing. I'm not looking for you to like help me like cure this. The reason why I wanted to talk about it is because it basically happens to everybody. At some point in your life, you will get anxiety or you will get depressed. And I'm facing both of those right now, and so I think it's important to talk about those because I'm one of those people who, at the end of the day, no matter what's going on, I kind of just buckle through it. And that is the kind of the way that I deal with it. And everybody deals with it differently. But I would say the best way to deal with stuff like that is to have people around. Like 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 if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling depressed, I think the most important thing is to surround yourself with friends and just to remind yourself that it will pass. That's probably the biggest thing for me is that I had to get back into my own head when I was having my anxiety attack on Saturday and be like, look, what happened happened. You'll get over it. He'll get over it. Everything's fine. Just deal with it. And after about 10 minutes of crying, I stood up. I took a deep breath, and I was like, all right, I'm ready to do this. And I went back to work.
Well, good. I mean, that's a very good first step. You really have to push through that loneliness feeling, because when you get depressed or anxious, you just want to run and hide. You want to be alone. You want to be isolated.
That's one of the biggest things that I felt, and I still kind of feel, is that I remember once my anxiety hit, it's like I just wanted to be alone. I didn't want to be around anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to try to be friends with anybody or do anything with anybody. I just wanted to be alone, but I couldn't. And not everybody has that. Like some people, if you have an anxiety attack, especially if you're in high school, I feel bad for high school kids because their emotions, they're such a roller coaster in high school.
Yeah, definitely.
They get it even worse than an adult would in a situation like what happened to me. And basically all that happened, like, by the way, like the reason why I had an anxiety attack at work is my boss yelled at me. My boss yelled at me, and then I had 2 customers yell at me, and it's like, and like I said, it was exhaustion and the caffeine pills and all that. Like, it all of a sudden, it just all hit me all at once, like a fucking, like a boxer punched me in the gut, and
you started feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah,
and then the anxiety hit, and then you got depressed because you're anxious, and you don't know why you're anxious, and
it was, but yeah. So I think your instinct is to run and hide.
That's the old, caveman instincts right there,
Yeah.
If there's danger, anything that's hindering you at all, whether it be anxiety, depression, a predator of some sort, your first instinct is to run and hide. To be alone, to isolate yourself, to be, safe. But nowadays, you need somebody to talk to. You need somebody to vent to. You need all this. But those instincts just try to kick in and tell you, no, you don't need these people. You don't need anybody. It's like the devil on your shoulder trying to tell you.
Yeah, you've got to ignore all that. You've got to ignore all that and just kind of, remember that you're not alone. You're not alone no matter what's going on, no matter what you think is going on. You have friends. You have family. You're not alone. There's people out there who are going through the same stuff as you. There's online forums, especially. Like, sometimes it's good to even just get on the internet and talk to random people. If you feel like that's gonna be the way it's gonna help you, that's the best way to do it, because you don't want to be alone during that, because if you try to deal with it alone, what's gonna end up happening is you're just gonna keep digging yourself into worse and worse depression, and it's gonna give you even worse anxiety, and worst case scenario, you're going to end up either in a hospital because you hurt yourself, or even worse, you're going to end up killing yourself, because if you just let it eat at you, that's the kind of thing that happens. And I know firsthand from when I was in high school, like, what depression can do to you. And luckily I haven't carried a lot of that into my adult life, but still, I mean, I remember what it was like, and it's not something that anybody wants to go through, and it's not something you want to put anybody through either.
No, definitely not. I was one of the rare kids that didn't get depressed or anxious in high school. I was a loner. I'm not gonna lie. I was on band. I was knowledgeable. I was also on the football team.
Nice.
I was also on the math squad. I was in art. I mean, I was the all around awkward kid that nobody really knew who he hung out with, because he's in all these different groups and cliques. But I never got depressed in high school. Never got anxious. Like I said, I'm one of those rare kids that didn't, but it hit me on in adulthood, and hitting me later on in life, in not having like a family member there to walk me through it, because I was an adult. I'm on my own. My parents are doing their own thing. I felt like kids nowadays that do become depressed and anxious, they actually have that support system there, and they just need to use it. They need to, talk to their parents. They need to talk to their siblings, their friends at school. Hell, even the bus driver or their teachers. Everybody's there to help them. They just need to realize that they're actually there to help them.
Yeah, like nobody wants to see anybody fail. Everybody has friends and everybody has people around them. So I think that's probably the most important thing. And then like at the end of the day, once my anxiety was over and I was able to go to my family and go to my friends and talk to them about it, it really helped me just to get it out there and talk about what had happened and what I think is the reason why I had the attack. And yeah, like I said, on Sunday, that Sunday was the last day that I didn't have any kind of anxiety or depression or anything, and it's because I just was hanging out with my friends and having fun and just doing stuff, and everything else just like didn't matter, and so that really helps, and I'm hoping to do more of that eventually. Like my brother kind of texted me and was like, "You need to come over after you get done with the podcast," so I'm gonna go over and see him after this and. Maybe me and him will work out some stuff too, because he's going through some anxiety as well. He's having some problems, and unfortunately, it's affecting him a lot worse than it's affecting me. He's actually sick from an anxiety attack that he had. Like he went to the hospital, and they gave him medicine, and it's been making him sick. And I'm really worried about my brother, to be honest with you. He lost a lot of weight in the last 2 weeks, like. He was around my weight, which is about 200, which is really high for somebody like me, but it's not like fat yet. Like I'm a skinny fat person.
Never heard it said that way, but okay. Yeah.
I'm a skinny fat person, and so is my brother. But now he's just skinny. He is down to like 178 pounds, and he was about 200 like me.
And he's lost that in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yep. Depression can do that. Anxiety can do that.
He can't keep it down, and I think it's a mixture of depression and anxiety, and also, like me, lack of sleep. He recently started working 2 jobs, just like myself. But the reason why he started working 2 jobs is because, well, he's got a kid. He's got 2 kids now. Actually, he has a 4-year-old. He's had a 4-year-old for 4 years. You know what I mean. He's had a kid for 4 years, and they just had another one. And dealing with a brand new baby can also be very stressful as well. So it's like 3 different jobs basically that he's doing. He's being a dad at home, and then he goes into work in the morning and he works at his second job, and then he gets off of that job in the afternoon and basically immediately comes over, and me and him work at the same place, and he works for another 4 hours, and he's not doing his body any good. I'm really worried about him.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
Well, like right now, I'm juggling soon to be newborn in December, so I'm trying to get all the baby stuff situated for that. I am a full-time college student, and I have a 12-hour shift job that I go to 5 days a week. So I mean, yeah, I know about the juggling of things, and it sucks ass. I am telling you right now, because I am exhausted, but
yeah.
My friend John needs me for the podcast, so I'm like trying so hard to keep my eyes open during this damn thing. But
it's all right. We're just about over anyways. I'm curious though, to the audience watching at home, whether you be watching it live here now or you're watching it later, what do you guys do to deal with depression and anxiety? Like, have you ever had an anxiety attack, like a full-blown anxiety attack where you couldn't function, you couldn't breathe, you didn't know what to do, and you were scared? I would like to know. So if you guys are watching the podcast right now, please chat something in the chat box as to what you have done to deal with this stuff. Or if you're watching it later on, if you wanted to leave a comment, because I am really curious. Also, what were your favorite games as when you were a children? Because Spyro was probably like my favorite game as a kid growing up, and
Sonic the Hedgehog. Sorry, gotta throw that out there. Sonic the Hedgehog.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
But yeah, Spyro, Glover, a lot of PlayStation 1 games. So I'm super jealous of the Game Grumps because they get to play all those like really kind of retro games a lot of the time, and then I've seen them play some of like the games that I played as a child, and it makes me so jealous. So I'd like to know what everybody else does. So
Another thing, I'm gonna ask if anybody wants to hear of one of my stories of having an anxiety attack. Leave a comment down below, and maybe in the next podcast, I can share one of those experiences with you and how I actually managed to get out of it.
perfect. Yeah, I'd love to hear about that as well.
Yeah.
All right, uh, I think we're gonna have to call it. I think my brother is standing outside of my door at my house right now. So that's it for the podcast. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you in the next Trial by Fire.
See you guys.